I show up at 7 for the morning shift and say, okay, where was the fire? Who died and how many? Your fame is not you. The mental shift is you can't let your public persona be your whole identity. Otherwise, you lose yourself. The mistake was for me to be successful, it has to be me, all me. I have to do everything. You can't do all of it yourself.
Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast exploring life-changing career moves. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the bold decisions that transform their careers and lives. Let's dive in. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Why I Left. In today's episode, I'm joined by a dynamic storyteller, entrepreneur, and leadership expert who left the bright lights of television to create her own lane in executive coaching and sales enablement. With a career spanning 20 plus years across media, consulting, and leadership development, Karlyn Kieffer has made it her mission to help others speak clearly, think quickly, and lead with intention. Whether it's CEOs of fast-growing startups or seasoned executives struggling to connect with their teams, she's bringing improv, insight, and inspiration to every room she enters. Her journey is one of reinvention, resilience, and real talk. So if you are ready to pivot or take your leadership to the next level, this episode is exactly for you. Let's go check it out. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Karlyn Kieffer. She is a former TV news anchor turned leadership development powerhouse, the founder of Pro Tip Partners, and the head of the Road to Greatness podcast. With more than 2 decades of experience helping mid-level and senior executives elevate their communication and lead with impact, Karlyn brings a unique blend of media savvy and corporate strategy. She's been recognized as one of the Network Journal's 40 Under 40 and a top minority business leader by the Washington Business Journal. So Karlyn, welcome to Why I Left. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And you forgot Chief Fun Officer. Can I just add?
Chief Fun Officer. Yes, I did forget that, but let's not forget that. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And so, before we really kind of get into, your story, I'd love to kind of get some background on you and for our audience. You started your career in front of the camera as a news anchor and a reporter. What originally drew you to that world and what did you love about it?
My goodness. So my father was a television and radio powerhouse. He was the first Black general manager for CBS and for a television station. He ran radio stations, television stations, and I would love to say, and I just wanted to be business like him. No. He was able to get access to sporting events, season tickets to the Celtics, the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Knicks, the 76ers, and all the different sports. And I went, and concerts, by the way, because that was also back when CBS owned Columbia Records. And I was like, I want a job with all the perks, right? Totally superficial. But anyway, I said, the only way I could do that is to go into television like Dad. And he got me an internship at Channel 9 WUSA here in Washington, D.C. When I was a senior in college. And I went, oh, wait, this newsroom thing, this is where it's at. This is fun. It's exciting. You're always at the center of all the action and everything else. And I went, okay, so I don't need to run the station. I just need to be on air. And so I shifted focus in my senior year of college, which I don't recommend for others. But if you have the stomach for it, do it. And got out there and just went and interviewed and became my first job was as a television trainee, a reporter trainee. So I was off air, but doing all the editing and writing and everything else. Finally, Ben Mankiewicz, who is the current voice and face of Turner Classic Movies. He was a reporter at that same television station at the time, but Ben allowed me to tag along and he taught me everything I knew when I started television. And he went to the news director and said, Karlyn's ready. She still has more time on her trainee program, but she's ready to be on air. Put her on. And thankfully, the news director put me on. And so I got on 6 months earlier than planned and loved a lot of it.
That's great. And looking back, what were some of the skills or even like the traits that you developed in broadcasting that truthfully still serve you today?
First and foremost, this was the actual statement I heard after my third live shot. Karlyn, your voice is so shrill. Every dog in the state of South Carolina is waiting outside the back every time you speak. And so my voice was actually an octave higher. And thankfully, he hired a voice coach, brought my voice down an octave, taught me how to breathe appropriately so I could have the right voice. And while that hurt, and I guess I cried, I'm forever grateful. So my voice was one thing. The other part was you have to be able to talk without a bunch of fillers. You can't kind of, sort of your way through a newscast. You can only just speak. So you remember to embrace the pause so you can figure out what else you need to talk about. You also, and one of my colleagues at the time, Tim Hutchison, actually taught me how to do ad-libbing because I was always glued to my paper and I had to say it verbatim and read it verbatim and there's no going off script. And little did I know how much that would actually affect me later. But just at that point, he said, whenever you're in the car, and you're driving more than 5 or 10 minutes, see something on the side of the road, make up a story about it and talk about it for 2 minutes. And when you say, kind of, sort of, start over. So every time I got in the car, I would talk to myself. Keep in mind, this was before everybody had a cell phone. So I just look like the crazy lady talking to herself in an empty car, but that's okay. And part of that allows you to not need to be so attached to a script as much as it is, did I get the essence right? Did I do the storyline justice? Did I get the facts right? And you go from there. And as long as the answer is yes, then you're more comfortable. So I think that helps me in the workshops I facilitate, building credibility. Quite frankly, also, I can now help others who have coming out of their mouth, any, teenager. And I said, sorry, but any teenager you have in your life, there are likes and and sortas coming out all the time. So, God bless my stepdaughter. I harped on her for so long that she actually now has eliminated most of her fillers as well. I don't know that you could get rid of all of them, but you can try.
I like that. And before I ask about this whole pivot thing, you mentioned something that I'm very curious about. So, were there videos or reports of you with this higher octave voice that I could still find online? Because now I'm very curious. Or you could send to me directly. I'm intrigued now. I'm very intrigued.
Absolutely have them on tape. I don't think they're out there on the internet.
Okay.
So if you'd
Okay.
like, I can send you a clip or a snippet. I do have former video of me on air. You can Google me on YouTube under my maiden name, Karlyn Lothery, and you'll find video of me doing a Planet Hollywood opening and interviewing people like Bruce Willis and Will Smith and Joe Montana, the late, great Patrick Swayze and others. I think back then I was still a little high.
Okay. Because you got the this I didn't know, right? And so I'm like intrigued. I want to hear this higher octave Karlyn because that's not who I know.
Thank you. No, and it's thankfully not who a lot of people know because once you're compared to a dog whistle, it's not exactly something you want to embrace all the time, but it's called progress and growth.
Well, now let's turn to your actual transition. And, this show, we talk a lot about bold career moves, these transitions that happen in our lives that truthfully we all go through. So what was the moment or even the experience that made you realize it was time to leave television and move into a new direction?
I had to cover too many sad stories. And as you have already come to know, and others will know as we have our conversation here, I don't do well harping on all the negative. I don't want to wake up and chase every negative thing. And first thing in the morning on Christmas, I started coming in. I always worked Christmas, never worked Thanksgiving because I always wanted to eat all day. So I worked Christmas and I would show up at 7 in the morning for the morning shift and say, okay, where was the fire? Who died and how many? And if that's how you're starting your day, that's not good. But you're chasing people to find out, did they steal it? Did they take it? Did they kill it? Did they do something negative? And everyone at this point, I'm sure, has heard the saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And so that basically means if it's something horribly awful, then you get the lead story of the day. Isn't that awesome? Right? And that's not the way I personally want to live. I think others are fine. They can compartmentalize, but not for me. So my last year, I was 4.5 years in. So my last year, I started thinking about what else can I do? What else can I do? Oddly enough, I ended up the week before going into a telethon where I was one of the hosts. We did a Children's Miracle Network telethon. And right before going into that, I lost my voice for 4 days and no doctor could find anything wrong with it. And it was the beginning of internet. So that was when you had dial up and you had to listen to the things. And it took 5 minutes to get from one page to the next. But I sat and I actually searched for what a former television reporter could do. And I stumbled upon media training and went, I can do that because that's basically what I do now is interview people. But the difference between being a reporter and an anchor is you do it and it's out there as opposed to doing it as a trainer. Then you're interviewing, asking tough questions, saying all the bad things. And at the end of the day, somebody says, thank you so much. I feel so much more prepared instead of them going home and crying or being sad or having some horrible thing happen to them. So that was very much more my speed. When I moved into that arena and I went, why was this not the thing? I'm a trainer, right? I am here to make other people look good. And they say thank you at the end of the day. And I think besides doctors, the only other profession is a trainer that gets a thank you at the end. Oh, and car repairman that gets a thank you at the end of the day.
You know, a lot of people really struggle to let go of identities tied to their past work. And, you know, I've interviewed some former anchors as well back a couple of seasons ago. So because, you know, that space, being a reporter, being on television, it's so visible. You get recognized in places where you go. And so how did you navigate this new space now, personally and professionally, that you're no longer Karlyn from CBS? Like how did you navigate that?
It was actually not a hard transition because well, I would say I was ready to leave TV. And so being anonymous was welcomed at that point in my life. And then after becoming a trainer, I actually moved to talk about hops. I think I've pivoted and left 3 different careers. I always say I had 3 or 4 lives. So I became the trainer, and then I was the first chief diversity officer for the USTA, United States Tennis Association. And there it was a very high profile job, albeit not public facing, but inside the organization, I walked anywhere and everybody knew who I was at that time. And so it felt very similar and it didn't feel weird at all. And it didn't feel like, oh, I'm missing something when I wasn't that. But I seem to have internal jobs. So the USTA, went out and became an entrepreneur doing training on my own again, back in house, went to work for a client when I needed to for personal reasons, and was in a high profile position there as well. Again, where I was running their sales training and their sales leadership training at that particular company. And when you're training people to be better, they remember. And when you're training people in your workshops and you watch them get promoted and those sorts of things, they remember. And so they're happy to see you, right? I'm the hug queen and all of that. And then again, in every job, it seems that I still have some form of public nature to it without it being out where I have to deal with now social media being caught on somebody's phone camera doing whatever. I like my version of anonymous yet famous or famous yet anonymous, however, which way you want to put that.
How did this idea for pro tip partners actually come to life? And what need were you responding to when you actually created it?
Well, as I mentioned, I went out on my own first to be a trainer on my own and was just gearing up and catching a stride. And then my father ended up with some health issues that required a lot more of my time. So I couldn't be the maitre d' and the dishwasher and everything in between in the business, albeit training, but I couldn't do all of that and handle his care. And so I went back and worked in house. After a certain amount of time, things settled down, things changed, and I got comfortable again. And what you said, I think, is actually the perfect example of, or what was I missing or what prompted the change? I wasn't getting enough out of it. I wasn't seeing the change and creating the change that I needed to have. And I also wasn't fulfilling the need for me to get out there and try new things. I love incorporating new content. I love innovating and figuring out what's the next exercise or activity or thing that's going to make someone learn this one skill, aside from standing in front of the room and talking at them or showing them PowerPoint ad nauseum or anything else. I like coming up with new things. I wanted to start incorporating improv into the trainings that I was doing because as people are becoming more reliant on AI, they're getting less proficient in communication. And And interpersonal communication, add to that. I actually just had a client say to me, we have all of these young people who went to college and came of age during COVID. And so they only know how to communicate on screen. They don't know how to do that interpersonal, in person stuff. And that's all that we do. We need you to help polish them up and make them more comfortable with that interpersonal communication. I didn't have that opportunity where I was working. And so to keep the name, that's why I left.
And I'm going to build on this improv piece because I'm very fascinated, and I've gotten deeper into some of how people are using improv in leadership. I actually interviewed a young lady last season for this. So you talk a lot about the young people coming of age during COVID. I've seen in some of your work mental agility and how you use improv in leadership workshops. Why do you think this mental flexibility is one of the most underrated leadership skills today?
Ugh, because people, you can't guess. I mean, look around. You can't anticipate anymore or predict, oh, they're totally going to say this. No. And so if you can't see something completely absurd or the antithesis of whatever you would have done, or something that you just have no exposure to, if you can't take that and roll with it, you either freeze, you start babbling, or disappear out of the conversation in some way, shape, or form. If any of those things happen, you can't be your best. You can't deliver your best work. You can't relate to the person in front of you. If you're a manager or a leader, you can't, and you've got behavioral challenges or team dynamic challenges. You have people who have different work styles, right? That one person who wants you just on them all the time and they like the micromanagement. You have the other person who's like, beat it. I'm good. And I'll let you know when I need your help. You have to be able to be flexible enough to work with all of those types. And if things go off the tracks in some way, shape, or form, either you have customer relations that go slightly awry, or you have, again, conflict within your team, or you hire someone whose personality might not be the perfect fit for your team, but their skill set is exactly what you need. You have to be able to adjust your own scope on how you interact with them so that you are getting the most out of them. You are keeping them engaged. They're not tuning out because it's like, oh, all that other stuff is for everybody else. That's not for me. And to be clear, that's not to say that you have to be completely different for every single person on your team, but you do need to know, how am I bringing everyone together to make sure that this team is effective? And so the agility piece is the cornerstone, I would argue.
You work with a lot of execs. What do you think is one common communication blind spot that you see in them, and how can someone begin to correct it?
Top blind spot. I think there are two. Can I say two?
Of course.
Is that okay? So I think I really do think there are two. One, for leadership, it is, but that's not how I would do it. And so they don't even think that there are other ways to do something other to get to the same point, or they don't see that there are other reactions that are coming up. They fail to plan for the reaction, right? They may plan what they're going to say. They're going to know everything they're going to say, but they don't plan for the reaction. What if someone gets defensive? What if someone gets excited? What if someone gets disengaged or feels left out or something to that nature? And so that's one blind spot that they're actually not thinking about. And so then when Mary up and leaves, and Mary was a superstar on the team, and they say, well, why? Well, it was because of this thing that you weren't paying attention to. Now, granted, part of that Mary needs to communicate, but the other part is really keeping an eye around what's different, or, how is this being perceived? So I would say that's number one. Number two, which comes up, it's been coming up a lot more lately. If a leader has a strong personality, I find that they start creating yes people unintentionally.
Mm.
And so in creating yes people, but I have all this, I have these ideas, I have these thoughts, I have this vision, I've communicated the vision. And they forget they have to bring people along to their vision and with their vision and where they're trying to go. Um, so they don't make it safe to ask an opposing thought. They don't make it safe for someone to say, but have we thought about this way, or can we try it that way? Or I was thinking, what about this? Because I think this is a faster way to get something done. And so they don't create a safe environment for not even conflict, but for contradictory ideas and thoughts. And forget to say, I really want your no. And so one of the things we do, we practice, if you've ever heard of the 6 hats and exercise. And for those who don't, Six hats is where you go and you're doing a brainstorming session or you're having a meeting, but everyone is wearing a different hat. There's somebody who's going to find all the great things about the idea that was there. And there was somebody who's going to find all the negative things. These are all the things that could go wrong. And that's their job, to think about what's going to go wrong so that it's not personal. It's not, I don't like your idea. It's, this is my job to find what's not going to work or what could come up that we need to plan for, those kinds of things. So I think it's creating the safe space for conflicting ideas and viewpoints and different approaches.
As a woman of color in both media and corporate leadership spaces, what challenges or biases have you had to overcome yourself? And how have they shaped your approach today?
We could talk for 4 hours on that one.
I'm sure we could.
And I will say it's evolved over time. My gender was far more an issue, if you would.
Okay.
If you would. The gender was a bigger thing in my 20s and 30s. My ethnicity became a bigger thing in my 30s and 40s.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
so on the gender side of things, it was the stigma or the stereotype that you got here because you're a woman and but you really don't have good ideas, or you really aren't capable of being able to do X, Y, or Z that your male counterpart could do. And I always blew that out of the water. Event at some point or another blew that out of the water because I was the person who, as my dad always said, you're going to have people underestimate you. You always need to overperform. And so I just knew that coming in. And then as ethnicity became a thing, I'll tell you actually, which was really bizarre. In one of the last places I worked, I had a manager who very clearly had some issues, leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have naturally curly hair now, and I was transitioning from straightening my hair always for 40 years to then going to my natural curls. I'm now in natural curls, and I noticed that he spoke to me differently when I came in with curls. So thankfully, he was a remote person who was only in the office like once a month. And so every time I knew he was coming in, I straightened my hair. And then we could actually have a business to business conversation rather than him getting caught up on the fact that I have curls and look a little differently. So it's been interesting. I will not and have not since leaving that job. I have not made a hair choice depending on who's going to be in the room. I'm very much what you see is what you get. And I am very confident in I deliver excellent workshops. I deliver excellent learning programs. I can carry a conversation. I know my business. I know the skills that I'm teaching to others, et cetera. I don't need to bend, and it's your loss if you actually don't want to use me to help you get better at what you're doing or to help your team. And I'm 52, so it took years, decades, lots of them to get to this point. But now that I'm here, I'm not planning on going.
Good for you. Good for you. And the title that you added in the beginning, the chief fun officer, right? And so what I love about that is like this blend of like playfulness, professionalism, and I imagine this shows up in all your workshops, right? What would you say, or what do you say to some of the skeptics who believe growth should be a bit more serious?
Boo on you. Can I be more 9-year-old than that? I don't know.
We'll take it. We'll take it. This is a safe space. Okay. This is a very safe
Safe
space.
space. Yeah, I don't know, and I've never looked to see if there's research or studies on being very serious and you retain or learn more versus having fun and retain or learn more. I am a firm believer, though, that, and actually there is a lot of research, so I can't even say I'm a firm believer. There's a lot of research to show that kinesthetic learning, anything where you are trying to change someone's behavior. So whether that's teaching them to parallel park, or it's teaching them to stand up and be a better public speaker, it's teaching them to be a better manager, leader, whatever that is, the best way for them to learn it is to do it. And you can look at even for schoolroom or classroom learning, traditional style teacher standing and talking and doing all the things. The teacher is only going to be about 10 to 20% of your learning. And then you've got to get out there and actually do that on the job part. And you have to actually practice. And so I teach a little, do a little. I build in the practice. The practice can be formal exercises where you're doing role plays, but you're doing role plays that attach or apply to your work situation and making sure that it's relevant. You aren't doing some role play that you'll never use that skill set, or you're never going to be in that scenario because you're too busy going, well, what does this have to do with my job? Rather than actually trying to focus on what you need and when you need it. The actually incorporating improv into some of the activities is it allows people to make mistakes, and it gives people permission to make mistakes. So if you think about probably the last time, actually, let me ask you, Brian, when was the last time you remember feeling really safe in making a mistake before somebody went and laughed at you for that? How young or how old were you?
Yeah, the safe place. I would say in the role before I have now, I was very comfortable in that, because one of the things my former boss would often say is that the only way we can be innovative is if we take a chance. And sometimes we take a chance with all what we thought was good information, and it still may not work out, but at least you tried. And so I felt really comfortable in that space to be like, you know what, if I messed up something, here's why it happened. I thought it was going to work because of this, but you know what? Maybe I missed something. It didn't work out. It's not tanking anything. Don't get me wrong, but I felt really good in that space. Probably one of my last roles. Yeah, the role before this one.
That's impressive because I have
Yeah.
to say, I mean, those are few and far between where you can find
Yes.
someone at this age, at this level of experience, where it's okay to make a mistake and they actually recognize the worst thing you can do instead of making that something that's worse than making a mistake is actually not trying at all.
Right.
Most people stop venturing outside of their comfort zone somewhere in that third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade time frame where everybody would laugh and, oh, you got the problem wrong, right? And they giggle and they do all the things. And then it's, well, I guess I won't volunteer. I guess I won't try. I guess I won't step out unless I'm absolutely confident that I'm going to get it right. And so when you do improv, you're going to make mistakes because you don't know, back to the agility part, you don't know what somebody else is going to say, what they're going to do, how they're going to pull you into something. So we do things like yes and, which allows you to keep building on things. But the fun of that is, oh, I didn't even think of that, right? You have these spontaneous aha moments. I like to do an activity called One Word, where a team, if you're trying to work on active listening more, and actually I would argue active listening is kind of outdated. I call it engaged listening,
I like that.
so
Oh,
that
I
you're
like that
not doing
reframe.
just right. So it's not just but you're engaged listening. You're listening for understanding. You're listening for how do I add? You're listening for do I disagree or agree? Right. You're fully engaged and immersed in what's happening in the moment and not practicing what you're going to say in rebuttal. So building one story at a time, one word at a time, you're going around a room and everybody's contributing one word to that story, but you still have to come to that one thing, right? You have to tell a story that makes sense. And so you have to pay attention, not just to the person next to you, but the seven people before them to make sure that you all are telling one continuous story. And you will have that person who spaces out, who throws out, dog when they should have said apple or whatever when they're going through that. But it gets them to really pay attention to, I actually don't listen as often and I don't
Mm.
do. And so they have the aha moment without feeling badly about it. And they have that, let me try that again. And they want to do more. So I think that creating that safe playground with the improv activities can teach the skills that you need people to have without making them feel badly about getting it wrong, and where they're going to enjoy it at the same time.
I like this reframe of active listening, reframing active listening to engaged listening, because that does make it a bit more active than actual active listening. I love hearing these new types of things and different ways of thinking about stuff, because engaged listening has me feel a different way when I'm talking to someone, right? How does everything you just mentioned, how does all this work really come together on your podcast, The Road to Greatness?
So it's interesting, and I'll also give you a little sneak peek update as well on where we're going with that. When I actually started the Road to Greatness while I was on break. And when I say on break, I had left my job last March of 24 and thought, okay, well, I'll take 2 weeks and then I'll jump back in and start building this business again and figuring things out. Turns out I needed a lot more time. And so in that time, I said, I'll just start a podcast. I want to talk to interesting people. I love to talk. I love to learn. I love to learn what makes people great at what they do. And one of my biggest things is, what are the transferable skills? What can I learn from Rick Barnes, the head basketball coach of University of Tennessee men's basketball? What can I learn from Lee Child, who is the creator behind the Jack Reacher and Reacher Stories and Amazon Prime Reacher? What can I learn from Josh Weiss, who is a global negotiator? that applies to business skill sets, that applies to what I'm teaching, what I'm doing, how I'm practicing for myself and my own road to greatness. And so I started doing, I'm not going to just focus on sales folks, which is where I initially thought I was going to do. I'm going to have everybody who's great at anything, because they have to have some kind of ritual. They have to have some kind of practice, philosophy, mindset, something that anybody else can take and put towards their own road to greatness and what's going to make them great at what they do. And it turned out to be great. And my first episode, I actually started with an improv artist. Her name is Keisha Zoller. And we talked about how improv works in the business world so much, and how every, excuse me, every business leader, every employee, salesperson, sales manager, you name it, everyone really can benefit from doing those improv activities outside of just I'm having a good time. There are skills, life skills, communication skills, interpersonal skills, cooperation and team skills that you can do with each other that makes you better at what you do. And the point that always came back was that everyone always wanted to do that so they could be a better influencer, and not necessarily a social media influencer. I don't teach that, but they want to be able to influence the opinions and behaviors of others. And so for me, that's all sales, right? Everything you do, if you need to convince your kids, brush your teeth before bed, make sure you clean up before you go to bed, or whatever that is, you're selling your kid on that idea. If you're
Right.
selling widgets and products and software and whatever, you're actually selling something. But if you need to sell your boss on an idea, and you have to sell your team, this is why we all need to rally behind an unpopular thing, because we all have had to do that. And if you say you didn't, you're lying. But we've all had to rally behind something that wasn't the most popular idea in the room, but we had to make sure we were executing it and executing it well. You still have to, as the leader in that group, you have to sell them to buy in. And so we'll take the shift, instead of just what are all the things that are making you great. It is, how are you becoming more influential, and how are you influencing others to either do, say, think, come along with you as much as you can. So that's coming soon. Should be back on air in November. And so I hope you'll look for that as well. And then we'll transition out of the road to greatness and move into It's All Sales.
That very nice. But as you've thought about this journey, even this most recent journey that you're taking out with the show, what do you think is one misstep that you made during the transition, either from employee to entrepreneur, or maybe another one? And what did you take from it?
Learning more and more how to ask for help, delegate, and be comfortable with it, and not look at it as a failure. So the mistake, I'll go backwards there. The mistake was, and I made this the first time I was on my own, tried to do it less, but still made it the second time, which was, for me to be successful, it has to be me, all me. I have to do everything. And you can't, right? You can't be selling your services, designing your website, doing your books, and also doing the follow-up work, the customer success, making sure folks want to come back. You can't do all of it yourself. You have to, in the early stages, while there's not enough moving around and not enough going on, because you're just getting started. But when you start to catch a rhythm, and the instant you are able to delegate and get a vendor who's better at whatever it is than you are. My accountant, thank you very much. I was a marketing major at Georgetown because I did not do well in accounting. So that was the first thing off my plate.
Right. Right.
But I'll never outsource designing. I will never outsource the instructional design or curriculum development or building the workshops. That is my sweet spot. But other things that are not, I have let them go to people who are better at it. They can do it faster than me, easier than me. And I have my self-esteem and ego back intact because
There
I
you
don't
go.
beat myself up about how slow it is going. And it gives me more time to be innovative and to do the things that I'm good at. So the myth that you can do it all is the greatest mistake that I have made. I have made multiple times. I am trying to not do it anymore. And so, but I think that I'm definitely doing better this time around.
Good for you. I'm glad you recognize that self-awareness is important, right? And so
Yes.
it's good you're moving forward with that. If you could go back and give yourself advice before making the leap out of television, what would you say, if anything?
Before the leap out of television,
Mhm.
yowza, literally nothing. The leap out of actually, no, you know what? The one thing is, don't let your misery show so much.
That's a
It
good one.
probably Right? I think that is the one thing I didn't do well. It was very apparent towards the end of my last contract that I was not happy doing that anymore. It didn't bring me the joy that it used to. And that showed. I read like a Dr. Seuss book, right? You can see every emotion I have all the time. So I think that is the thing that I wish I had not done. And yeah, but everything else, I mean, leaving was the right call. Going into training and development was the right call. All of the different flavors of training and development that I've done over the years, all the right call. But the thing that as a 30 or 20, gosh, I was late 20s at the time. The thing that you don't know in your 20s, you don't appreciate how much negative talk brings down everything around you. And it doesn't mean that you have to be sunshiny and rosy and fake as much as it is you don't need to poison the well and complain the whole time or be difficult or anything like that. It's recognize this isn't the right thing for you and then take the steps to move on and to find what is right for you. And I wish as a 20 something I had known that.
And, for those who may be considering a big career change, especially from a high profile role or even like an identity driven profession, what's one mental shift that they need to make?
Your fame is not you. And that is to say, who you are at home when you're having a bad day. And fun fact, I ate one day on a really bad day, a half a gallon of ice cream in 12 minutes flat. And when you're having that moment, that's you. Yeah, that was bad. That was kind of, whoa, but you're you, right? You get up, you get dressed, you shower, you go to the store, you do all the things. You just do it without people saying hi to you while you're doing it. And I remember being at the DMV getting my driver's license renewed when I was living in Augusta, Georgia, and reporting at the station, CBS station in Augusta. And someone screamed across the DMV, "Hey, News 12! Look at you! You're a little itty bitty thing in person. On TV, you look so big." And I'm going, oh. And, that's before the Friends scene where they're like looking at Monica and how many, the camera adds 10 pounds. How many cameras were on you? It was way long before that, but I was so hurt. And it was so nice to go to the DMV and not have to have somebody scream at you across the way calling you big. So there's an upside to that you get to move in the shadows and it's okay. But the mental shift is you can't let your public persona be your whole identity. Otherwise, you lose yourself. That happens with a lot of athletes. If you think about it, they were everything. And then when they finally retire, they don't know what to do with themselves. If they don't get that job on TV to be the commentator, a lot of them don't know what to do afterwards. But I think that if you just remember, I'm still me, and I just have to figure out what's my next big thing, then focus on your next big thing and go after it 100%.
And, what's let's say like a simple or everyday practice that anyone can use to strengthen their communication and executive presence?
Ooh, two things. First, power pose. And everybody talks about power pose. This is not me. It's everyone in the business. It's everyone in general, I would argue. But standing in front of a mirror and standing in your best, tallest stance where you feel good about yourself, have your theme song playing. If you don't have a theme song, the first thing you need to do is go get one. I have 3. Get a theme song, have the theme song playing, stand in front of the mirror and say all the good things about yourself. All of them. Everything you think that is good about yourself. Don't let a negative things creep in there at all. What are all the wonderful things you know to be true about you, whether you can see them, whether you know them because they're on the inside, whatever that is. That's number one, because that will always have you walking taller and having a greater presence in any room that you walk into. I'm semi-introvert, about 50% introvert. So I actually have to do that every time I go to a networking event because I will be the person who sits off in the corner and just looks at everybody having a good time. So I have to do that. So I will remember to make my way around the room
Okay.
and do those sorts of things. So so that's number one. I think and so maybe I'm going to give you 3. The other thing is that if you ever get an email from me, if you watch me, listen to me in the podcast, if you listen to me in a workshop, if you see anything, I will always close out with "have a great day on purpose." And you actually, if you set the intention to have a great day, whatever setback you have is not going to leave you leveled. It's not going to leave you wounded where you can't recover. It's okay, well, how am I going to turn this day around to make it a better day? And so it may not be a great day. It might be just a better day, but having that great day on purpose and the intentionality behind it is another thing. And then in terms of improving your communication, I'm going to go back to the original activity that I mentioned at the very beginning when Tim taught me how to do ad-libbing. When you're in your car, and whether you have people or not, if you're in your car and you see something and you're in the car for 20 minutes or a half an hour, and some folks have like an hour commute to work, look at something on the side of the road and then start talking about it. Make a complete story about that thing, whether it's true, not true, whatever. Just talk about it though for 2 minutes out loud and listen to yourself. And if you put in a filler, if you put in like, kind of, sort of, start over from the beginning of the sentence. You don't need to go back the whole 2 minutes, but just start over from the beginning of that sentence and do it again without the filler words. And those things will help you truly communicate on your feet. It's a great way to practice taking a pause instead of doing this. And I have some clients who will vocal drag until they get their thought right. So they'll have the word last a little longer,
Yeah.
until
Yes.
they figure out, oh, this is what I was going to say.
Yes.
And if they appreciate the pause and get the words out and they can communicate. But it took me, gosh, I worked on that for 6 or 7 months to the point where when I did live shots, it was exceptionally rare to have a filler word in it. And to this day, I still think I've let others creep back in, but I do it so few and so rare, few and far between, and so rarely that I feel like when I speak, it comes through. People aren't listening to me and counting my fillers instead of actually listening to me. They actually can hear what I say. So I think that those three things: grab a theme song, tell everything that's great about yourself when you get up in the morning and stand in front of that mirror. 2, remind yourself to have a great day on purpose. And 3, do the ad lib activity while you're driving in the car. Those are 3 things that will up your game immediately.
I think I'm going to share that with my kids too, so that they can so I can plant those seeds early. So I like that.
Yeah.
As you look forward to the future, what is one thing you're looking forward to the most?
Ooh, I think I've been in Pro Tip Partners, or I launched Pro Tip Partners truly with full energy last September.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to really it growing beyond what I thought it would be. I'm actually where I thought I'd be after a year, so I'm pleased that I'm on track. I want to see that I actually land where I wanted to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Am I still going out and helping people get better at what they're doing, helping people get better at their communication, at their leadership, their management, closing deals that they want to close? I want someone, and 5 years from now, it's, can I get a whole list of people who will be like, yeah, I tried that thing that Karlyn said, and oh my gosh, it worked, and I closed this deal. I got this promotion. I got this whatever. So that's what I'm looking forward to most. Is I love to hear success stories. For some people, they want to be paid a gazillion dollars. And while I'm not free, the money isn't everything. For me, it very much is, I tried what you said and it worked. And so now I'm going to try something else too, right? That momentum is the thing that I look forward to a lot.
And now let's flip the mic. So, what's one question you have for me that I can hopefully answer?
Yeah, I would love to know, because your podcast also has morphed over time,
Mm-hmm.
and where you shifted from COVID time, why I left, to other motivations for leaving. What I 2 parts. One, which is, how did you mentally make the shift, and how did you decide, I'm going to pivot to this other thing? Because technically life conditions required it. So how did you decide there's this new path? And then second, unrelated sort of, but second adjacent,
Mm-hmm.
is, so far, and excluding me, of course, the most interesting reason why someone left that you've heard so far.
Good point. So let's start with the first one. So I actually came into this knowing that after season 3, I would make a shift. So I was mentally prepared to say, because I knew it was, like, to be honest, that Great Resignation was a bit of a fad. I knew it would eventually fade. And so I came in knowing that, you know what, I don't think we're going to always want to talk about Great Resignation stuff for who knows how long, but I do want to keep the show going. So I have a 6-year plan, right? And so after year 3, I was like, all right, then we'll make a shift where we open it up. Because what I've always wanted to do, and the premise of the show continuing to be, we don't talk about resignations enough. I wanted to broaden that lens to say, whenever you've left, let's talk about those bold career moves and then what it then led to. And that then also opened the aperture for other guests who could come on and speak to how they left, what they then started, and all of that. And so that's always been the focus. And so making the shift truthfully wasn't that hard of a shift because I actually knew it was coming. And now I didn't know when Great Resignation would kind of get a little stale. And I don't think it's gotten stale because I'll be honest, I think some of the learnings and impact that happened from the Great Resignation are truthfully coming to fruition right now. I don't know if people want to actually fully recognize that, but some of those things people are just coming out of the fog. So that's one. Two, one of the most interesting reasons why someone left, I'll say the interesting piece has been, it's been the stories around really chasing your gut, right? I'll go back a little bit and say one of the things that has surprised me about this show, I didn't know truthfully what was going to happen, what type of stories I would get, but it has quietly become a bit of a social experiment of mine that I didn't intend, but it's been a look at the human experience. Some could argue sad on some occasions in that we don't, we all have these questions for ourselves, what we'd want to do, what we could do, what we'd like to do, but we don't often answer those questions because of life, right? We have partner, kids, disabilities,
Life
whatever.
is life.
Life is lifing. And I don't knock that, right? But we are doing these things, but everybody's got an itch for something else. Not everybody scratches that itch. And so what has been great is to hear about, and especially some of those earlier seasons when people left during all the madness, they scratched the itch because they had the time to sit back. Those questions that have always been coming up that they put aside because they had to get the TPS report done or whatever, right? And do all those things. Now they had time and they didn't have to go in the office and they couldn't run from it. And then they finally said, yes, I am going to start my own wellness company, or I am going to go out on my own as a therapist. And those are the stories that I've really enjoyed hearing. I love all the stories, but the people who had been asking themselves these questions, never fully answered, but finally was given a reason to actually do something, and arguably waiting for a worldwide pandemic. So it's one of those, you're just like, wow, those have been the the people who answered their own call and they're now living in their truth. I've loved those stories.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fulfilling to hear and even to hear you light up as you talk about things because you've been asking questions the whole
I
time and
know.
you get interested and everything else. What I would say though, in listening to you talk about what you've gotten out of it or what impressed you or what ignited your fire on hearing some of that is also inspiring in terms of you can do that thing and scratch that itch. So what does that revelation that, yeah, they're following their truth? What itch does that scratch for you?
Well, that's a good one. Well, I think that what it's scratched for me is that this is an outlet, a creative outlet for me that truthfully I needed. It's given me permission that I truthfully didn't ask for, but permission to be like, let's keep this going. How far can this go? And so it has been a lot of fun I talk with people all over the world and folks who, like Karlyn, I don't know how our paths ever would have crossed. And so it scratched the itch that now I am at a networking event. I'm the extrovert. So I like to be out there. I may go on the side just to grab a drink, but then I'm back in the game. So,
Right, right.
but it has really helped me, one, just continue to build relationships, get to meet some great people, and also get to break down one of my themes around, I do think we're all much more connected than we give ourselves credit for. And what it's allowed me personally to do is to not just say that, but to actually say that and have some backing for that, providing these stories to folks and say, yeah, you're going through this. Well, Carla, she was in media. You can go back to episode 50. I had a gentleman there who was an anchor, left media as well. Like there are folks in all these industries and you can see yourself in that person. So you're not alone, person A, person B, who is going through whatever you may be going through at work. And so it's helped me
Yeah,
out a lot.
and I would say that you're doing a service to others in letting them know to that very point is it's okay to say, you know what? That chapter, done.
Done.
I say all the time, period, new paragraph. Because if I'm not segueing in some really cute way, then it's a period, new paragraph. But
Yeah,
you can period new paragraph some portion of your life, your career, your whatever, if you want to get out and chase something. So I also think that you having this show allows yourself to give others who are thinking about it, kicking it around, debating, will it be okay? Yeah, it is. And it's okay because you're doing it.
absolutely.
It's okay because we're all out here creating new chapters and
Absolutely.
everything else. So I appreciate that and
Thank
what
you.
you're offering to the listeners. It's great.
Thank you. Well, look, I want to thank you for joining the show today. I'm glad we connected on LinkedIn. That means the algorithm still showing me some love, which I very much appreciate. That's an
Absolutely.
area, Lord knows, I need help there. But when it connects me with great people like yourself, I'm like, good, something is resonating. So I appreciate you coming on and you sharing your story. Where can people learn more about you and stay connected with you should they want to, follow your journey?
Absolutely. Thank you. They can find me on LinkedIn for sure. And just let me know that you've heard this, but you can do Karlyn Kieffer. It's Karlyn with a K and a Y and Kieffer, Kieffer. Look for me on LinkedIn. You can also go to protippartners.com and connect with me through my own actual website. Take a look around. There's free stuff. There are classes you can take, communication essentials, elevator pitch. As much as I hate going to networking events, I actually do have a fantastic formula for elevator pitches. So it's the do as I say part, not as I feel. So you can absolutely do that. But those are the two best ways to connect with me, and I look forward to it. And yeah, you're right. Building your team and your I call them peeps, but yes, building your team and your network of folks who are out there cheering for you and wishing you success is a huge part of everything, right? Because it's you can never have too many cheerleaders and supporters hoping that you take the next great big step. So, and that's why you left.
Well, thank you so much for all that info. And look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank Karlyn Kieffer for joining me today. I hope you all got a lot out of it. All of her information will be in the show notes. And hope you all have a great week. And we'll definitely see you next time. Karlyn, thank you so much.
Thank you and have a great day on purpose.
Thanks for listening to Why I Left. Join us next time for more inspiring stories about growth, resilience, and transformation. Visit us online at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co.